Kia ora everybody, welcome to the fourth episode now of Kōrero with Creators, the Moko Artist Edition. I am super excited for today's conversation because our guest today, I would consider one of the living legends when it comes to moko, and in particular today for facial moko. Turumakina, aka Tu Moko on social media. Welcome bro, lovely to have you here, thanks for coming in.
Kia ora tū. Pleasure to be here, bro.
I'm always being asked about moko, and I try to tell people that the answers lie with the very people who upkeep this taonga, you guys, the moko artists. So I wanted to give my platform to moko artists to hopefully give some clarity regarding these traditions and to particularly focus on how they're affected by the age of social media and online spaces. And so throughout the series we've done, this is number 4, like I said, I really want the audience to see the variation in the ideologies here, so absolutely be as honest as you can. But firstly, introduce yourself, let the people know who you are.
Kia ora. Kia ora whānau. Ko Turumakina dūli taku ingoa. I tipu ake au I whakatāne. Nō reira, ko mā tātua te waka. Pūtaua ki te maunga o ene mate roa te awa. Ko toroa te whare tūpuna. Ka kapikitia te whare kai. Nā te awa. Ko tūhoi, nai te rangi hoki, me heti no Ngāti Piki ao, te aro. I've been doing moko for probably 30 years now. Was lucky enough to be picked up by Mark Kōpua from Tolaga Bay. So my learnings have come through Mark Kōpua, whose learnings came through the sons of Tame Poata, Takaria Takiro and Paraurangi. And also through people like Monitau Maunu and Ruka Broughton, were also two of his mentors. So, and I'm living in Australia now on the Gold Coast. Have been here for, I think it's going on 13, 14 years, something like that. And living close to the theme parks here in Pimpama. And service the Māori community here in Australia. Have been here for many years, and I had been coming backwards and forwards to Australia prior to moving here as well. Quite a bit. Yeah,
awesome. Yeah. That's what I'm excited for as well, is because one, like I said, you're probably one of you've got a hell of a tutor list, I guess, Mark Kōpua, people like that. And then also you're currently, and you've been based for a long time overseas, which is, you're the first of the artists that's, not been based here at home. So I'm really excited for two people around the world to hear about that too. But first and foremost, I would love to hear your personal definition or interpretation of moko. What does moko mean to you?
Moko means to me, for me, it's about rites of passage. Moko is a rite of passage. And so it's one of those modalities that would, literally mark life's milestones as you go through life. Traditionally, that would have started at around puberty for both males and females. And as you progressed into different things in life, you receive more and more. So it's about marking, important transitions in life, basically.
Yeah, beautiful. That's a great answer too. And like we said, you've got a hell of a list of teachers. How did you get started? What got you into even doing moko? How did that come about?
I was involved with the Polynesian dance troupe and doing kapa haka and things like that. And so we had to draw moko on for stage for about 10 years. So we got pretty good at drawing on each other and on ourselves. As you do in kapa haka. And then one of the bros that was in the crew turned up to my house one day with a homemade machine and said, "Bro, you tattoo me?" So, and he kind of been playing around with it for a little while himself.
Right.
And that was Ra Cooper, his name was. He's from Tauranga Moana. So, we got to it and just being real tutu fellas, just having a go. And that was 30 years ago. So I did that for about 6 years with a homemade machine and just, tattooing people who wanted to be tattooed. And
right.
I wouldn't recommend that pathway for anybody these days. So it was kind of unnecessary today, but that's how many of us got going in those days. And I was building websites at that stage, so I put up my own website about moko and had some information up there. And so Mark Corpo came across the website and reached out and met up in Rotorua at a moko wānanga there, one of the very first of its kind. And yeah, he took me on from there. So yeah, rest is history from there.
Yeah, awesome. And like you said, 30 years, that's the longest running practitioner I've had on the show yet, which is super cool. And obviously it means that you love to do it. What is your favorite thing then about doing moko for people? You know, what keeps you going?
Like I say, it's a rite of passage, and so it's a very ceremonial practice, and people come to get moko for, you know, some quite heavy reasons, some reasons, but a lot of people come for, you know, things like passing babies or loved ones passed, or even sexual trauma, things like that, and you know, watching how moko helps them deal with a lot of that stuff really is really what I enjoy about moko. It helps people in a big way. It brings healing to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
The kaupapa,
yeah, awesome. And it seems to be something that I hear a lot from these other artists, you know, is I guess, at least in comparison to my journey with moko, you know, what other people's reasons are, and some of them are pretty intense, you know, pretty heavy, like you said, milestones for them. And so clearly that doesn't change from moko being done today to moko being done 30 years ago. You know, it seems to be can be quite healing, you know, very healing process for a lot of whānau.
Yeah, it is really healing. Helps. It's a cathartic process for a lot of people. What does that mean? It's like it helps people to release.
Yes.
Just the process of it, really. The ceremony process of it helps people to release.
Absolutely. And I found, you know, for me and my whānau, it was a life-changing day for us, you know, and that's what I try to sort of get across for people around the world, you know, like it's so much more than just another day on the under the machine, you know, getting any sort of tattoo. It can be really quite a monumental moment for people, kanohi or not, you know, anywhere on the body for some people, you know. But so you said you're working websites, obviously, you know, when Mark picked you up, so kind of obviously techie or a bit internet savvy back then, and so obviously today in the world of the ever expanding social media space, what is your relationship as a moko artist with social media?
I like to use social media for educational purposes, educate myself, and also to help educate others. So you know, for all of my clients that are coming through that are getting moko kanohi stuff, I'll use platforms like Zoom to run wānanga, to
that's awesome.
Prep people for the day. So I'll bring everybody once a month. I'll do once a month. So I'll have a whole crew coming in through for wānanga once a month, and we'll just go through what moko is and what they can expect, how do they prepare, all those sorts of things. For that, we also use Facebook and social and Instagram for disseminating information about moko. That's a great way to get information out there. And a lot of people are on social media, and it's a good opportunity for them to make contact as well. So, like you say, there's thousands of questions about moko all the time. It's one of those things that people are really interested in. And so having access to artists online for people is really beneficial, I think.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And that's one of the things I'm trying to get across with this, you know, because every now and then one of the criticisms that I face is like, oh, you shouldn't be sharing this stuff online, you know, this is taboo subjects, this is, you know, whatever. And I go, yep, that's totally fair, you know, in some contexts, and there's absolutely stuff out there that I do not share. You know, I have a limit on what I'm happy myself to comfortably put out, but obviously I can't control what others are happy to share, but that's on them to be comfortable to share. But I think it's really important sometimes to hear it too, you know, not a moko artist myself, you know, to hear what people like you and the other guests that I've had are like, oh no, this, you know, I'm more than happy to share this, because like you said, it's education, you know, and in the modern world where our whānau can be spread out all over the world, we're not always grateful or fortunate enough rather to be able to have that wānanga face to face anymore, you know. So I totally agree with the use of social media for educational purposes.
Yeah, for sure.
So then from that, I imagine then you've seen this, at least to my knowledge, as a person who's, you know, grown up with social media in the past couple of years, especially since I've been in the space as well, moko and Maoridom is like exploded online, you know, like it feels like it's so much more popular than it was when I was growing up in the early days of social media, you know. And how do you feel about it? You know, what's the positives and negatives that you can see as a practitioner of moko?
Well, the positives, like I say, is access to experts, that sort of thing, which is the positives. The negatives is how people conduct themselves. And I think engaging with people across social media is not kanohi to kanohi, has its drawbacks because people kind of get emboldened and quite rude to each other. And you know, I've noticed that, you know, oftentimes our own people can be at each other's over the net, and it gets quite ugly, bro. So it's definitely a negative. And I think that's just because you're not standing face to face with somebody, you know. So it has its drawbacks in that sense. But overall, I think it's a positive thing. How people respond to each other, you know, needs to be considered.
Yeah, people are much braver behind the phone or behind the keyboard, aren't they?
Yeah.
And from that, we've seen the rise in creators like myself. So me is just an example, but there's plenty of us out there who are creators moko. And whether we even talk about Māoridom in our content, you know, plenty of Māori creators don't have Māori-based content, but of course are moko and have become this sort of location for people to dump all their questions, you know. Oh, come on, you got to tell us this, and this. But at the end of the day, at least in regards to moko, we are still just the kaiwhiwhi, you know, we're not you guys. How do you feel about people like myself who become these, I've been using front-facing in regards to moko and these sort of bastions of knowledge, or expected to have all the knowledge from whoever's approaching us, Māori and non-Māori alike?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, it's a point of contact. And I have watched a few of you out. There's another guy, Parker Davis. I think he's great. And so answering questions as best you can, and all you can do is answer to what you know. And like I say, that whole interaction across the internet can be quite negative in some cases. And my thinking about it, I don't know. I haven't really given a lot of thought, but I do see you guys out there on the net and talking about issues and stuff like that, which is really cool. People need to dialogue.
Yeah, and I always think too, even for those who don't have Māori or even Māori politically based content, it's still just great for Māori or even non-Māori out there to just see people, see more people than we would necessarily in our day-to-day lives, depending on where some Māori live, they'll never see it in real life, So to see Māori, and we get to collate sort of all the Māori that have moko, you can find them on social media, so many of them are on social media. It's like, wow, there's actually so much more of it than you might see if you go down the road to the shops, which is, I think, been a pretty cool thing, is like connecting and seeing the types of people that get it, the types of Māori, what they do for Māoridom, and in their own personal lives, and inspiring people to take up the mantle themselves.
At the end of the day, it's part of our modern world. We're living in this technological world, and we either adapt and adopt, or we kind of get left behind. So, I'm about adapt. I'm more keen to adapt and adopt and accept what's around us. Like I say, it's a part of us now. Even AI is getting on the scene, and that's a whole new world right there, having an impact on social media. Well, the images that are floating around, you see, there's a lot of fused. I call them fusion sort of art pieces where AI is to interpret our culture into images, and it's looking like something out of Asia.
Yeah.
The artwork is fantastic, but AI don't know the nuances of our cultures.
That's right. And I think you bring up a good point there too about adapting, evolution, because I think it's one of those things that we see a lot. Of course, these are traditions for our people, that word tradition. But where is that balance between maintaining tradition, but then also, like you said, not adapting so that you get left in the dust? And that's something we haven't really talked about. There's a question at the end sort of in that regards, but it's more about specifically the moko, but that concept of adapting in general. Like you said, one of the, I guess, traditions or tikanga of Māoridom is face-to-face, and we have to adapt with the changes of social media because that becomes less likely and doable, and so for people listening, Māori or not Māori, we need to, you know, that adaptation and evolution has to happen, and there are ways for it to happen. It can happen, you know, it's not a bad thing that it happens. You just got to go about it a certain way. So this is pretty cool too for the viewers, but you're actually the first artist I've had on here that has moko kanohi themselves, because I always say I think one of the big reasons too we kind of get, creators like myself, I mean, get misconstrued as people with all this knowledge is that I sort of assume maybe it's because people have that sort of, only tattoo artists have tattoos on their face kind of thing, so you must do them as well kind of thing. You know, I go, no, it's not how it works in this context, right? So I can't answer things that the artist would have. But I said you might be surprised that quite a lot don't have it yet, and you know, none of the artists that I've talked to yet have had it, but you're actually the first. So if you feel comfortable sharing, I'd love to know what your journey with your moko kanohi was. You know, how did that come about for you?
Well, I guess for me, it was really just a natural progression of my work. So when did I get it? My oldest boy's like 25. No, it was my third boy. He was born. When he was born is when I got it. So that's like 20 years ago. And so at that stage, I've been tattooing for 10 years. And, you know, the revival was still very, very young. We are still very, very young into our revival. And I think that's one point that people need to understand. You know, this is one of those tikanga that had been lost for generations, 6 to 7 generations. Still really, very young and bringing it back. We're like, you know, little toddlers walking around, this sort of thing. And so for me, it was really just a natural progression, you know, for my work with moko. And so Mark mokoed me in Auckland, and it was after I had finished my bachelor's degree at AUT, and I was doing my bachelor's degree in Māori business development. And so instead of, you know, the certificate, I wanted to take it back to old school days and get my first markings, which is what I'm wearing now. I haven't put in since. And so, yeah, that was that rite of passage for me. It was marking that milestone of education through higher education. At the same time, it was also, I was, you know, friendly, real good bros with people like Tamaiti, and we were hanging out with him around the time of those raids, the raids. And, you know, and so working in television at the same time, talking to whenua television with Robert Pofari. And so my politics was starting to develop. I was starting to get educated on history of Aotearoa and all of this sort of thing. And so moko was, for me, was also a real stance of mana motuhake Māori. So both of those two things, graduating through AUT, mana motuhake Māori, was me saying to the world, you can't oppress us anymore. Keep us under your thumb anymore. We're here, we survived, and we're going to carry on.
Yeah, mean. Yeah, that's awesome. And in saying that, do you think more Māori should have moko?
I do. Yeah, I think that we're heading back to a normalized cultural practice. And that's going to come with some ups and downs. I think that a lot of people may be putting it on at the moment. Not everybody, but there's a tendency for people to be putting it on because people are putting it on. It's getting trendy. Right. That's a bit of a risk for me. Because as I say, this is one of those tikanga where it was a rite of passage. And if you look into rites of passage all across the planet, it was everywhere. All cultures had rites of passage. And it was one of the strategies of the Crown of England to assimilate Māori, to assimilate Indigenous, if not murder them, assimilate them, and get rid of their religious narratives, get rid of all of their narratives and their own. So it was one of those things that was strategically taken away from Māori. Yeah, and that's a whole, you know, generational impacts of that are really immense. Psychologically, spiritually, physically. You know, you got to think about loss of land, loss of language, loss of culture. All of those things was a very intended strategy of the Crown of England to turn us into labour force, basically. Education system, good Christian citizens through the mission schools and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you got to remember, England had been doing this at least 500 years before they reached Aotearoa. First port of call was Ireland, and they were that was their intentions in Ireland. So every time they did it, they went from Ireland to Canada. Then it was Canada to India, and so they were progressing in their learnings about how to do this successfully every step of the way. So by the time they got to us, they were well versed. Our tupuna had a lot to deal with. It was a crisis of colonialization. And we're the result. And now the mokos come back onto the scene, reviving all of that has its ups and downs, and it has its pros and cons. And it's got to take a generation or two for us to really, get it stable again.
Yep.
Do regional designs, regional patterns, like Whakairo is now. Whakairo is well structured, who's who, right, and all that kind of stuff. I like what Gordon Hatfield has to say. He'll say things like that moko is really in a chaotic state, and I'd have to agree with that. But that's just a part of the natural progression of our 30-year young revival. You compare it to the tradition of Samoa, who have been going strong for over 1,000 years. We've got a long way to go.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something too that, I'm not entirely sure how many of my audience, realize that, like that there was this period where it was basically gone, done, and like we've had to bring it back, and people like yourself and Mark and people like that have had to sort of pick up the pieces, and try and create something again that we can have as even a semblance of what it once was, and hopefully in X amount of years, it does get back to that sort of glory.
It'll get there. We have enough expertise amongst us and enough knowledge amongst us to make a well-educated guess about how some of those rituals looked. It's going to get there. What was I going to say? I had a track. I'll come back to it.
No worries. Well, I mean, we're flying through that first section about social media, and we're already on to my frequently asked questions. So I wanted a portion of these episodes to be dedicated to the questions that I'm always being asked by my viewers, and hopefully over the course of the series, they'll be able to see sort of how much or how little variation there can be in the answers amongst moko artists, and hopefully break down some of those misunderstandings or maybe just miseducations surrounding things like moko. Your answers can be as simple as yes or no, or as in-depth as you want, but the one sort of caveat, I guess, would be try and answer these questions as if you were answering a client, because that saves you having to preface every answer with, this is just my specific kaupapa or whatever. If I was approaching you and I wanted to get moko and I asked you this question, how would you answer, X person? And that sort of approach these questions in that way. So first up, probably the number one, is moko only for Māori?
Moko kanohi, I would say, for me, 95% yes. Is that the other 5% would be something similar to if my kaumātua and all our elders came to me and said, hey, look, we've got this queer over here who's been living with us and has become one of us and has been so for all her life. We want to give to her moko, and that's coming from a collective decision. I'd be all good with that. But it would have to be a collective decision. But generally in speaking, and I'm just talking about moko kanohi, everything else, puhoro is probably the same, I would say. But everything else is fine by me. But moko kanohi, I think at this stage, because we are so young into our revival, a lot of our people are still going, no, you guys are not having this is ours. You've taken it away from us. And again, that's a natural part of the revival phase. So I'm hoping that in the future we'll get to a stage where we'll be a bit more sharing with it. For people that are appropriate.
So then flowing off of that, like you said, that for you basically just applies to kanohi and the puhoro and stuff like that. Is kirituhi a term that is in your vocabulary, or you just consider it moko anywhere, non-Māori or Māori alike?
I used to use the term kirituhi back, years and years ago. I don't use it anymore. I just use moko. Kirituhi literally just means skin art. There's another mōpara which is really called whaiwhai on the skin. I kind of leaned away from it because I considered all of my work to be moko. At the end of the day, everybody has a story to tell, and moko tells a story of the person wearing it. And even if it's not, even though, I might do some Irish guy, I did a Scottish Kiwi fella yesterday. He's got a little bit of Māori ancestry. His great-great-grandmother was Kingitanga, sort of Waikato. And but he's Scottish through and through, really. And so I put his connections on there to Waikato. But even if he didn't have Māori blood, he still has a story to tell. Most people just want to depict their whānau.
That's right.
It's aspirations, staying strong in life. Those kind of representations, and you can do that. That's right. Without having all the whakapapa attached to it.
Yeah, awesome. And so that client is a great segue too, because like you said, basically, sorry, what did you say? Scottish, Irish, through and through, but has some Māori whakapapa there, Māori heritage somewhere in there. And one of the things that I'm always getting asked at, and one thing that's become very prevalent to me, is how much that the blood quantum Kōrero has infiltrated our people. To be fair, indigenous peoples all around the world have been affected by this tool weapon system. But so in saying that, I always get asked, I'm only part Māori, am I still entitled to moko?
Of course. Yeah. If you have one drop of it, it's good by me. Yeah. I think the more we include people, it bolsters the culture.
That's right.
Yeah. More people coming into being open to the reo, being open to the tikanga, being open to Māori ways. It's better for the planet. It's better for...
That's right. It is, sharing is caring. The age-old saying. Do you have to have permission from your elders to... This is normally in regards to moko kanohi, of course, but, is that a requirement for you?
For me, it's about getting the support of your immediate whānau. You don't have to go to your kōrero in your tribe and ask. But, get the support of those who are important in your life, who have say in your life. Get some support.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think too, you're right. Some people think they have to go and approach the whole thing, do a whole thing about it. I'm like, well, if you, like you said, if your immediate family supports you, then that's your whānau at the end of the day.
Traditionally with rites of passage, it would have been the elders that determined when you were done. You didn't go asking about it. They would have just, what's your turn? On.
Right.
But again, there's one of those. It's that's part of that revival phase again. We'll hopefully get back to that stage where that's a collective decision, and all the different phases will be structured, and tikanga will always be set back in place, and it'll be collective decisions once again. This is kind of where I'm hoping to head with my mahi anyway. Ngāti ao.
Yeah, awesome. And so I'm relatively young, I'm 24 as of last year, and I think that's one of those things that surprises a lot of people. They go, whoa, what the heck? I thought you had to be sort of old or established or achieved all these things in order to get, moko kanohi particularly. But so for you, if someone approached you for moko kanohi, how old do they have to be?
Well, again, that will get back to the whānau. Traditionally, you would have had it at around puberty. You would have started at puberty and progressed through it as you went through. Some of those, you see all those Goldie paintings and the Lindauer paintings, all those karaua, those ariki on there, probably would have been a good 20 years, at least 30 years, in some cases, for them to acquire that whole moko kanohi, the whole face. Something that was done in one session. It was acquired as you made your achievements, as you crossed those transitional phases in your life. Toa, becoming a protector of the tribe. First one being coming of age, coming into adulthood, coming into the ability to reproduce life. And then the toa phase, skill sets. And you've got things like pare wānanga, graduating through different wānanga. Again, that goes back to skill set. And then you've got tohongatanga, you've got kaumātuatanga, you've got things like menopause for women. All these major transitions that happen naturally to you in life, those are the things that got marked. Achievements through the wānanga, through academic acquisition.
And I imagine too, the pure means of how it was done would also have extended that time period, because like today, modern machines, like you could whip it up in a day or two, but I imagine the older methods may have not been as smooth sailing, maybe.
Oh, no, it took a long time.
Yeah.
It took a long time. Another reason, and you needed time for it to heal as well. So, I know that if I'm right, I think I've read somewhere that tawhia was done in kind of one big session. Maybe
wow.
Maybe that was over an extended period of a week or two. I'm not too sure. But that was a rare occasion, from my understanding, because of the kingitanga, right? So I'm not. Don't quote me on that because I'm not too sure how long ago I read that or where I read it. But generally speaking, it might have taken, I know for Kauai could take up to a whole day.
Right.
With the old
yeah. Where in comparison to anyone listening, my mum who got hers done, it was 40 minutes. I think took hers 40 minutes. So.
Yeah, so the process required a lot longer, and severing the skin like that, opening it up for the scarification process was a lot heftier than a machine.
Oh yeah.
You're opening the skin on your face wide open, so the tapu restrictions around that were quite stringent, and there's quarantine, right? So you don't get infection and all that kind of stuff, and so you didn't do anything. You lay down on the mat and you were fed, you were looked after until you healed.
Yeah, so a big process. and you see it too because one of my tupuna, Tamiti Marino, he was painted by Lindauer, I think, but we have photos of him as well, and we've got a prints or copies of the final painting, and you see throughout the photos in his life like how his moko evolved, basically. When he was a middle-aged man, by today's standards, I might consider some of the line work like clearly incomplete. Like I doubt you'd see people leaving a studio like that today, right? For example, but then the final painting, he's basically fully realized, I suppose. And it's cool seeing that process sort of in our historical records like that, and how long these processes took.
You're actually lucky to have those that stage process documented like that.
Yeah, it's super cool. He's got a lot documented about him, which is real sweet as well from a tupuna of that age, So this, so far, at least out of the people I've talked to, and to be honest, people I've just interacted with in my day-to-day life, not necessarily been on interview, this seems to be the biggest misconception, or the one thing that nobody has agreed with to date. But do you have to be fluent in te reo Māori in order to get moko, particularly moko kanohi?
For me, you don't have to be fluent, but I think you should be on the journey of reo. I think reo should be packaged and parcel with moko. You can't just take, the visual aspect of our culture, and so you can look good at it out at the beach, and not maintain and uphold the key of the language of the culture, which is the reo. It was an important part of the decolonization process, because language is programming, and we've definitely been programmed to think in a certain way due to the education system, due to religions, whatever it is, politics, and the only way that you're really going to break out of that programming is by learning the reo. For me, important stage. And for a lot of people, moko kicks that journey off. It starts it. And that's cool. That's awesome. As long as you're, I encourage all of my clients who are pursuing moko kanohi, if they haven't started the reo journey, they should start it.
Yeah, one of the artists that I talked to prior to this, he said lots of people who put their moko, I guess, at the end of their reo journey, they end up not getting moko or learning the reo, like both of those things never come to be. He said lots of people though that have come in to kickstart that journey, something about that process and that reminder every day that you look in the mirror like, oh yes, I'm Māori and my world is in te ao Māori, then they make all these achievements and goals that they aspire to reach. So I think that's really important.
That's more so the case. Sorry, bro.
Yeah,
that's more so the case for a lot of our people. But when I was born in 1972, 5% of Māori speak Māori language. 5%. We're Shukohanga Reo and Kurukopapa Māori. That's come a long way since then. So again, it's a part of that revival phase. But I do recommend that if you're pursuing, even if you're not pursuing the moko kanohi, you should be learning the language. If you're really serious about upholding tikanga Māori.
Yeah, awesome. Now, this is a question that I'm excited to ask you because, like I said, you're the first of the artists that not actually based anymore in Aotearoa. So do you have to get moko in New Zealand?
Oh, yeah, it's a common question here too. And our whānau back home expect you to travel home. And honestly, if you can travel home, and get it done in your marae by someone from your area, man, that's awesome. You should. But if you can't, it's okay as well. Our people have been migrating since Irihi, right? Hawaii ki nui, Hawaii ki rua, Hawaii ki pā mau. And we bring in our customs with us and our traditions with us. And that is certainly the case. Australia has been the last leg of that migration for our people. I don't know, there's nearly 1 million of us here. I don't know what it is, 600,000-700,000 or something like that. And so we have established a big presence here in Australia, a big community. And even though our village is wide and spread out, it's still a village. There's still a aspect to our modern Māori village, right? And Moko over here, Moko Kanohi over here is probably taking off as fast as it is in Aotearoa.
Right.
You know, and that's a positive thing here because, like you said before, it prompts people, it encourages people to follow that Māori path, to follow the reo, to follow the tikanga, to get involved in kapahaka, to get involved in maurako, all those things.
Yeah, you're awesome. And kind of hand in hand then with that kōrero as well, and you kind of mentioned if you can return home, but do you have to then get moko at the marae? Is that a requirement?
Not a requirement, no. I think that's just up to you and your whānau, where best to go. I went up north a couple of years ago to do Rānei to McGrath, and we just did it at his home in Cable Bay. Whānau came around. Some people prefer it more intimate.
Yeah.
Other big crowd with the whole tribe around, and that beautiful feeling, bro, inside a whaere supuna with your people there around you, cloaking you while you're getting done. It's a beautiful feeling, powerful, but it's just as powerful at home if you've got all the people.
Yeah, awesome. No, that's right. And, this is really just to let Māori know that all of them, you can if you want, and you don't have to if you don't want to, and if you don't have access to it, doesn't matter. It shouldn't be a hurdle or a wall inhibiting you from, taking up your Māori tongue. That's right,
Celebrate it.
Like you said, do it at home if you can, if the artist is happy to come to you. This is a big one that I see a lot in regards to moko kanohi specifically, and that is that once you receive moko kanohi, you are then expected to stop drinking, smoking, swearing. On extreme ends, I've even heard sort of committing certain sexual acts, if I were to say it like that. But is that a real prohibition? What's your thoughts?
I think it's a bit of an unrealistic expectation. And again, everybody's going to have their own journey and all of those things. I mean, alcohol is definitely something in society that has its issues. For me, that's the gateway drug right there. And I've definitely stepped away from that quite a bit. I'll have a social one here and there. I still have a social one here and there, especially if my bros are there and everybody's having a good time. I'll have a social thing. I still smoke marijuana here and there to relax and deal with my chronic neck pain. I'm actually medically prescribed. So, like anything, you can abuse McDonald's, bro. And that's gonna make you sick too. As far as the sexual acts go, I mean, our tupuna were very, very cautious when it came to sex. There were no holds barred.
Nope.
No, I think we just put in extra expectations upon ourselves that are unnecessary.
And I wonder if they have a history too in those same restrictions that we see from Christianity, those sorts of...
Yeah. But at the end of the day, how you conduct yourself in life is what really counts. If you're, if you're out there and you're committing violence, I wouldn't give you a more. You're still your kids, then sorry, bro, you got a lot of work to do before I tattoo you anyway. Moko is a tohurangatira. It's a mark of nobility, aristocracy, so to speak. And that's not to say that only ariki or chiefs can wear it. Everybody can wear it. But how you conduct yourself when you wear it upholds the mana of Rarohinga, right? And where it came from. And those people, according to the kōrero that we have been left, were positive, aroha, care for one another people. And Mataora was really drilled by Uetonga when he wanted to return to the upper world from Rarohinga with Niwereka. And they were like, you're going to look after our daughter, right? Let's hear about you getting back to your violent ways again, because, is that how men conduct themselves up there, bro? Because that sucks. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah.
And so we'll come and get her if you do start doing that again. But he made his oath and upheld it as far as we know. And so for that, those pūrākau in general should be a big part of our rituals, because those are the narratives that hand down, values, ethics, how to interact with the environment, the important things to our culture are handed down through the narratives, through the pūrākau. And so they hold a lot of those type of values for us. And so for me now, moko rituals, moko papa should be embellished with pūrākau so that those values are handed down. People need to understand that. Like I said, you're wearing a moho tohu rangatira, so you should, have this, that, how we show up in the world makes a difference, and wearing it as a tohu of character is how I like to expound upon it.
Yeah, that's a really awesome way to put it. And my next question was going to be, is moko only for chiefs? But I think that answers it beautifully as well in the same question. So obviously then, one of the biggest sort of, if anyone asks people, if anyone asks us, like, what does moko represent? What is it? 9 out of 10 times you'll probably get the answer that, it represents our whakapapa, right? Represents who we are and who we've come from. And so plenty of people go, if I don't know my whakapapa, has that then cut off my ability to receive moko?
Right. And it's like the real thing. I mean, it's one of those things that should be looked into, sought after. And I just had a woman here the other day who was adopted at birth and knows her father, so has that side of her whakapapa, but mother doesn't want to know her, so doesn't have that side of the whakapapa. So these are some of the issues that come up with moko. Some people have come through the system, don't have access to their whakapapa, don't know who they are. Does that mean they're not entitled to moko? For me, no, it's not. It doesn't mean you're not entitled to it. Your journey might be different. I even come up with a different type of facial. It looks more like the old matakiore.
Right.
I come up with a style that looks similar to that, and I termed it matataki. And matataki goes back to traditional times when an ope taua or an ope turned up at your marae, you send out your top gun to ascertain who's in the ope. Right. And he's looking for moko. He's called the matataki. He's searching for what type of people are in the group, and he'll take that kōrero back to the ariki, and they'll decide whether they're going to welcome them on or not. So right. He's seeking information. Yeah. So I gave that name to a matakiore style for the face for those who are seeking information. Wow. So it's adaptable. Like I say, we need to be inclusive for our people, especially those who, not through their own choices, have been disconnected from their tikanga, from their reo, from their whakapapa.
Yeah. Wow, that's super cool. I didn't even know about it. I've never heard of such a thing. That's really awesome. And are you saying like that's like a you thing? Did you just create that yourself? Yeah, that's pretty cool. And that's what I mean, people listening, and that's what I'm talking about. This one of the legends of the evolution and revitalization of this art form for us. So obviously then, kind of in the same vein of all of that stuff, and I'm sure you've had this question come up as a moko artist overseas, but does the artist have to be from your iwi then?
No, not at all. Even if you look back traditionally, some iwi didn't have artists, so they brought them in from out, those relationships, intertribal relationships. No, I mean, most people are just, I get a bit whakamā when I go into other people's area to do, especially people like Wetini Mitai, right?
Right.
Yaroa. But me and him had good friendship. We know each other for a long time. And so he wanted me to do his moko, and I'm like, bro, you got hohua over there. You look over there. I'm coming into their hood. But he was adamant about it. So
right.
Those relationships you have with people.
And that's what I always try to iterate for people. You want to feel comfortable. It's a big thing, both literally, like it's a big thing to put anything on your skin permanently, of course, but spiritually as well. And you want to be completely comfortable and completely comfortable with your artist and what their skills are going to, give to you, and you don't want any reservations about anything, and if you go, but I have to have an artist from my iwi, but I'm not entirely sure about it, or him, and then I go, well, then maybe not, maybe it's not the right way to be in,
I mean, if you can get someone from your hood and you're connected with them, that's awesome.
That's awesome, right?
Even better, but it's not always the case. It doesn't work out that way all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So this one's a huge one, especially today, of course. This is big conversations about trans, non-binary evolution in the world. Now, of course, at least when it comes to moko kanohi, the big understanding is that certain styles are for certain genders. Have you had to approach, had trans or non-binary people approach you wanting certain of the specific gendered moko styles, and what has been your approach? Sorry.
Yeah. I have had one approach me, and we've been dialoguing over the last couple of years, actually. This person's from my area in Whakatane there. And so, yeah, it's one of those issues that would have to be determined by each and every hapu, each and every iwi. We're going to have their own tikanga on these sorts of things. For me personally, they're definitely entitled to moko kanohi. What does that look like, though? That is the question for me. And I'm kind of leaning towards whether we adopt or adapt certain, or come up with, design something that's specific to that particular issue. So I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough call, and it's not for me to make those decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in saying that, when I first started tattooing under Mark, we were in Wellington, and a transgender came in with her mother, male to female transgender. I'm not too sure how to terminology that, but he was male, now female. So she came in and Mark did her kauai while I did the mother's kauai.
Right.
And she'd gone through the whole operation, bro. She's hormones, everything. She looked like a woman. No womb, obviously, can't have babies, and this is where usually the discussion heads with kauai on trans. You can't give birth, and as a male, that's not for me to say. You know what I'm saying? That's woman's business, so to speak. And again, I think that's just going to vary from people to people, from tribe to tribe, family to family. Have been in spaces where I don't know what the terminology is. I thought he was male, but was obviously bi, maybe. Bi, I'm not too sure. And he got he was talking about getting a kauai and then onto his jaw, but he wanted to stage it in 2 stages. So the person did his kauai first, and this blew up on the internet, blew up on social media, blew up on mainstream media, and eventually he got the whole lot done, which was cool because that was the discussion he had with the artist at the time. Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those issues that's going to have to be wānanga out. For me personally, if a transgender came to me and it was a male to a female and wanted a kauai, I would probably change it up a little bit so that it doesn't offend our wahine, because it is offending our wahine at the end of the day, and that's something that needs to be considered. And I'm not wahine, so it's not for me to say.
And that's it's one of the ones, and it's probably outside of the is moko only for Māori question, it's got to be my number one question that I get, particularly once people find out that the facial moko styles are gendered, so to speak. And I always say, this is really just a question for the artist themselves, because it's one of those situations that's so heavily debated on all sides, and moko itself, like you said, we're in the toddler period of the revival, we're still trying to figure out how to get the, I guess, normal moko just up and happening, before we even have space to discuss anything else and changes and adaptations to that extent, within the moko scene. So it's just cool to hear it from the sources, really. So yeah, that's cool. And the I don't know is perfectly fine. Pretty much everyone said I don't know. It's so fresh, and like you said, it basically requires every unique circumstance to be discussed at the time of, there's not a one rule, one sort of blanket statement that you can give for those situations. It's absolutely just case by case from what I can gather.
Yeah, totally.
So this is this is my favorite question personally, because I just love seeing the different names, but this will be particularly cool coming from someone of your age, no offense. But who are your favorite moko artists and inspirations? You know, who do you look up to in regards to this art form?
Oh, far out. Jeez. Obviously, Mark Corpo has been my biggest influence in life. Derek Lardelli has been another major influence, that echelon of artists. Ricky Manuel, you know, those forerunners, first generation revivalists have had a big impact on the moko world. Lucky enough to rub shoulders with all of them. And so they've had big impacts on my life. Rangi Kipa, Hemi Tapeti, you know, you can list all of them, and all of them have the mātauranga and the level of understanding and knowledge that are coming out of these men and women is something very aspirational to me. As someone who hasn't been brought up around wānanga or anything like that, I had to go looking for it for myself. And the reo. So for me, those are the really important values and things that I look out for in moko artists. How do they conduct themselves? What's the whakapapa of their knowledge? You know, those sorts of things. Aesthetically, there are some fantastic artists coming through the ranks. Yeah, you got Australia. Off the top of my head, I can think of Te Haunui Tuna, Tawhanga Rika. You got Cy McLeod, Peter McGrath. There's just so many fantastic artists coming through the ranks. It's mind blowing. The level of skill that are coming out of these young people is really fantastic. So yeah, I look at different artists for different purposes. You know, different things that I gain from all of them. And you know, there's also some artists out there where I think, oh, bro, you shouldn't be doing that yet.
Right.
Hold off for a little while, cuz.
Still in the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. And that's why it's cool, you know, that you mentioned both people who inspired you in your youth, or in your beginning, I should say, and then of course those who are younger than you, you know, Te Haunui did My Arms and people like that, you know, and all people that I've had on the chat for the most part, you know. Sai I'm interviewing on Monday, which I'm really looking forward to, you know, and it's just cool. And I'm starting to see this pattern, you know, of these kind of the high fidelity artists, I suppose, you know, those that are really up in the forefront, the ones that keep making this list. You know, every time I ask an artist, you know, you always show up, Sai shows up quite often, you know, all these people, Tawhanga Rika always shows up on the thing, you know, and so I'm like, oh, it's really cool seeing like who's...
Yeah, there's some beautiful artists. A few more I can think of right now is Lance Nutter, Sean Manamuri, Anikaro Harugura.
Yes.
You know, there's some beautiful moko artists out there.
Yeah, awesome. No, super cool. So one thing that I think is hard for a lot of the people following me to kind of grasp, right, and we've talked about it a bit already, is the spirituality or the impact of moko for people, you know, and the videos, the multitudes of videos that have gone viral of people receiving moko out there, you know, and people crying and the haka going on, and people, particularly non-Māori, this question's for, are like amazed at it, you know. They go, why are they crying, you know, what's going on, why are they all performing, you know, what is this? People go, oh, it's so, because it's so important. But of course this is normally in regards to the person receiving it. Now as the artist, how spiritual is this process of giving moko, and has that, or does that weight disappear at all with time, or even placement? You know, does placement change the impact of it for you?
Placement can change the impact depending on the kōrero that comes with the but definitely there is a heavy weight of spiritual responsibility that goes with it. But it's a very rewarding experience as an artist to see the impact that has on people's lives. I think I'm probably getting up to around 300 moko kanohi now.
Yeah, wow.
Males. And at least 10 times the amount of that of kauai.
Yeah.
It's just me. And to see how it affects people, you know, you might run into them into the street and they'll give you a rundown on how it has impacted their lives since receiving it. And man, it's just beautiful to see our people walking out into the world beaming, glowing.
Absolutely, eh?
feeling. Yeah.
And it's so unique too, and I always say, as someone who has it himself, the way that you interact with other Māori mau moko is a unique feeling, you know, like that instant recognition of whānau in a way, you know, and you go, oh, kia ora, you know. It's completely different, you know, to how my interaction in that sort of in public, just with strangers, I mean, you know, has been before that. And this is excluding people who are recognizing me, you know, as a creator or whatever, just absolute strangers. And then, you know, there's like some small acknowledgement like that, but you can see it, that pride, you know, it's that pride, I think. And seeing people proud to be Māori is so cool.
And as a wearer, you wear it on behalf of a lot of Māori that haven't had the opportunity or can't put it on, you know, so whatever reason. So we wear it for a lot of our people. Like you say, they're proud about it and they want to come up and give you hongi and say, kia ora, man.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, it's super, super special. And so it's cool hearing it from the perspective of the people that give it to us, you know. And in saying that, everyone on social media is often seeing the end product, right? They're seeing that end, the haka, and all this and that. But lots of people are really curious about, on the day, what actually goes into your process as the moko artist, you know? When someone approaches you on the day, how does it all sort of shape out for you?
Right. So they'll make contact. We'll go through, like I say, I'll pull them into a wānanga online with Zoom, and we'll run through, you know, my process and how it all works and what's their expectations, how they should approach the day. I tell everybody they need to approach it in a ceremonial attitude. And, you know, there's things like pure, there's tohi, there's those sorts of things, karakia that happens, and that can happen at rivers, that can happen at oceans, can happen just at the marae. But the main thing that is approached in with a ceremonial attitude. And so bringing that attitude into the spaces, for me, is a really important thing. So there's karakia, there's pōhiris, there's for the kauae, I'll just design that on the spot after a little discussion about their why, what's the reason for your kauae, so that I can interpret their kōrero. With the mata ora, that's a bit more involved, so I'll get them to send me a photo of their face, and I'll design up a few weeks beforehand.
Oh wow!
So I've got that map ready to go on the day, so I'm not spending 4 hours designing instead of 2.5.
Right.
So I know exactly where I'm going. And then for a kauae, you know, no lips, like you say, 45 minutes under the needle, that sort of thing. Kauae with the lips, that could take up to 2.5 hours or something like that, getting on to 3 hours, depending on the style of infills. Sometimes I'll use lines instead of solid black, which is a lot less intrusive and a lot quicker. And for mata ora, like I say now, I'm really hammering the staged process. You know, what you've got on your kanohi now is a good stage 1 sort of process. Right. I might even get up into stage 2, heading into the future. But then you get your people like Wetini Mitai, those leaders amongst us who have, you know, who should be fully tattooed up by now, fully moko up. He was 23 hours, I think it was, over 2 days.
Wow.
Big, long session because of the style that he wanted. And so we did it at a study over there in Masipigao. And then after that, there's obviously Kai. Kai will help break the tapu, karakia, poro ake. So it can be a big, solid process.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's cool. And that's actually the first I think I've ever heard of anyone sort of pre-designing the moko kanohi for men, you know, like so Lance did mine, and on the day for me, just pulled up, had the kōrero on the day too, like no pre-kōrero, you know, he gave me the wānanga and everything in the first hour and a half maybe, and then did design and draft sketch, you know, right there on the spot, you know. And it takes a while, and, you know, people go, oh, the majority of it's actually everything before the actual machine, you know, or the needle part, you know. There's lots of that learning, and then the discussion and all that's quite a lengthy process. So it's the first time I've ever heard of anyone sort of pre-designing it. That's pretty cool.
I was the same as Lance, where I would just do it on the spot. But I think it just put a bit too much pressure on me to translate it all efficiently and effectively, so I decided to start pre-designing the mata ora.
Yeah, it makes sense too, you know. It lets your brain relax into the creative process a bit and less on the schedule, you know. which I can imagine helps, especially too because for anyone that hasn't seen, you got to go check out the Instagram because there's some of the most beautiful moko kanohi and just like unique. Well, for me, from what I'm used to seeing, I would consider your mahi just so unique when it comes to the moko kanohi space particularly, like just so many cool things that I'd never seen before have come out of your work, and so it makes a whole lot of sense if you've got a lot of time to really, play around with shapes and forms and kōrero and meanings, and tohu and things like that. Must be why that final product is so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, and like you say, bro, it's you're tattooing somebody's face, and that's out in public. That's their presentation to the world. So, you can't take that lightly as an artist. We had this discussion recently, and I had this discussion recently with Gordon Hatfield, and he was saying, really, artists shouldn't be touching things like mataoro or puhoro until they've had at least 10 years experience. And that goes for all crafts. You're not going to master something until you're 10 years in, 1,000 hours into your craft is the general rule, right? And so you've got a lot of these young fellas coming through. Some of them are anxious to get onto the mataora and all that kind of stuff and haven't really put in time yet. And you're risking people's appearance to the world, on the face especially. They'll look at that every single day. So if you're not giving it the best job you can give it, you could possibly doing a detrimental service.
And it's an interesting thing because, and I've had both ends of this argument here, this idea of no moko is bad, but then some people, I think it was Cody, he was like, nope, there's definitely sometimes there's bad moko, whether it's bad from the kōrero, like it wasn't done in the right sort of ceremonial circumstances maybe, or just purely from an artist's lack of, if we just take at base level, artistic skill, that the artistic skill just wasn't there for moko. And some people go, oh, well, moko's moko at the end of the day, which, and plenty of people believe that too. But so, where do you stand on that? Obviously, if you think, so 10 years, don't be doing it too soon, because there can be bad moko.
I agree with Gordon on that one. It's a 10-year apprenticeship before you get onto it, especially the face.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, last question for this little section here. Have you ever turned somebody away from getting moko, and what was the reason?
Yeah, when I had my studio in Auckland, fella walked in off the street, Māori bro, with a photo of King Tawhia. Said he was a descendant of King Tawhia.
Right.
Told me that the Queen told him it was okay to go and get it done. Will you do it to me? Will you do it for me?
Right.
And I was like, oh, bro, I'll tell you what. You go and get the Queen and you come back with her and we'll do it.
Right. I assume you never saw him again?
Oh.
No. Yeah, that's a funny story actually. That's a good one. Now these... Oh.
Yeah, sorry, bro.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, instead of turning people away, generally speaking, I'll set them on a pathway. Bro, right. This is what you need. This is what you need to do. If you want to start the journey, go and do this first.
Right. So give them an opportunity to then return. It's not just a no. It's a not yet.
Most people who come to me anyway. Most people who come my way are really ready for it and have done some homework and have a relationship with me in most of the cases.
Right. Yeah, because it seems like in the past few discussions I've had, one of the quickest no's or turnaways that I seem to see from the others is the sort of rudeness, I guess, in regards to cost. This of course, money, and it's always everyone sort of says if you've messaged me and you say how much for this, how much for that, it's not even a reply, not even an answer, because if you're too worried about what it costs, then maybe you're in it for the wrong reasons or your head's not in the right spot.
That's a good indicator of where they're coming from.
Right.
It's probably an indicator for us as an artist that, bro, you just putting it on because it's trendy.
Right.
Just putting it on. The reciprocity that our ancestors observed when it came to moko kanohi was extensive. And it took time for them to go and acquire all of the taonga that was gifted for such practices, So in modern terms, I don't know, you might look at it now. I mean, what's a korowai worth? What's a mere pounamu worth?
Right.
What are they worth?
Yeah.
Those are taonga that were given in those times. I wasn't had enough kai to feed you for a month, sort of a thing. So yeah, it is something that needs to be dialogued a bit more about and brought to the table a bit more about. Koha can be in our modern age a bit of a cop out for a lot of people as the recipient. I mean, most of us in the first, second generation have stories of kohas of things like a scarf or $20 in an envelope, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I had one artist say a capsicum, like a vegetable.
Yeah. And so if that's the value you're putting on a tohu rangatira, then that says more about the person, giving the koha. Whereas in traditional times, koha was a symbol of mana. Well, the more people were, you see it amongst the Samoans now. They give, and they give because that speaks about mana, right? That's one of the tikanga or the values I think that we've lost when it comes to koha. And in saying that, I don't charge extravagant prices. For me, a mata ora would be somewhere between 2 to 3K, but that would be like I say, spread out over time.
Right, that's the entirety complete sort of price range.
Yeah. Kauai, for me, I've always maintained a koha tikanga for kauai. Mainly just my way of saying, cheer, thanks for carrying the taonga through for us as a people. It was about a 40-year period after World War II through to the 70s where kauai had stopped completely. And the last males moko was seen in the 1860s. Right. So economy had been lost since then. So it's just my way of saying thank you to our wahine for upholding the art form.
I'm a young person, I like playing video games, I like watching movies and all this kind of stuff like that. And one of the words that I'm seeing all the time in regards to cultures and in media is cultural appropriation. It's like the buzzword for indigenous groups or cultural groups around the world. But of course, a word that causes a lot of discourse depending on the approach. Now, we've seen throughout the years as well a lot of moko representation or misrepresentation, if you want to consider it that, in pop culture, media, video games, movies, whatever it is, as a moko artist. And if you've had any experience actually doing mahi in this space, but where for you is the line between appreciation and appropriation in regards to moko?
Consultation is the line. I've been in there a little bit of I don't know if you saw the last Thor movie. There was a couple of scenes in there with a woman wearing the kauai. Yep. Approached by a cousin of mine who does makeup for Marvel to engage in designing that for them. But this was with Taika, right? Taika Waititi. It was a little bit different, so he understands the appropriation side of things. But the consultation was had, and that was the main thing. Consultation is a big one for me. It's just the whole capitalistic mindset is something that needs to be looked at in general, not just in terms of cultural appropriation, but how about human appropriation? Right. And so capitalistic corporate world is going to take advantage of cultures for the reason of profit, then they just really need to think about what they're up to, right? What they do. So for me, consultation is the key part of that process there, and that doesn't mean it's going to be a yes either. It might be a no.
Right. Now, we talked about this way at the beginning, and I said I'd bring it back right at the end here about the evolution. We were talking about tradition evolving and keeping up with the times. Now, like I said, at least when it comes to moko kanohi, your mahi is pretty spectacular, and like I said, for me, it's nothing that I'd ever seen before in moko kanohi, I don't know if it's because I'm not familiar with old styles or, anything like that, but how, for you, have you evolved, or do you approach evolution of our art form, of this art form, be it anywhere on the body, but of course, particularly moko kanohi? These days we're seeing things, obviously modern tools is a big point of contention for a lot of people. They go, oh, it's not traditional if it's not with an uhi or with the old ones, but lots of people fail to realize that the old isn't even really practiced, is it? The old actual scarification style, is it really? And then of course things like color the introduction of color and the color conversation in particular to Moko Kanohi as well. You know, the introduction of color in Kanohi is a big point of disagreement for a lot of people. But as, the artist himself, how has the evolution of the art form gone?
When I started working with Mark, he would encourage me to push the envelope. And so I set about doing that in my work, not just to try to develop a style for myself to be unique, which was part of the process, but pushing the envelope in terms of how do you apply, you know, like as a musician, you've got a repertoire of songs. How are you gonna lay that out on the night? About your crowd and where you are, right? Similar thing for us, for me anyway. In terms of color, I've got no problem with putting color on people as long as there's a reason for it. You know, if you can validate why you're putting color in there. I seen this beautiful kawa just the other day of this wahine, and it was blue. And she's obviously from the coast where some of those traditional whare tupuna over there are painted blue.
Right.
So there's a really good reason why you're going to get your moko kawa done blue. If there's a good reason for it, man, go for it. I have no problem with it. If it's just to be like, you know, put lipstick on, then
right.
Something to say about that.
Yeah, and then I guess the question there too comes from the artist's perspective as well, right? Like if the artist is happy enough to just do it for no reason, so to speak, you know, then there's maybe questionable practice from the artist's side of things.
Yeah, there's probably a bit of that happening here and there, and again, it's just going to come down to experience and who they're rubbing shoulders with, I suppose.
Right.
But yeah, I think that we should be evolving, we should be adapting, we should be adopting if we need to, especially as we've lost so much Kōrero around the depth of Moko Kanohi especially. We can find inspiration from our Polynesian cousins, you know, and you can see that a lot of that coming through now with the solid black work and Moko that's coming through from our Polynesian cousins, yeah. And that's cool because we know we've got those whakapapa links. We have links to our Polynesian whānaus. And a lot of us artists are mingling with those artists over there. We're going over and spending time rubbing shoulders, and they're adopting some of our patterns and we're adopting some of theirs because the kōrero matches. You know, at the end of the day, it's how you depict the person's whakapapa, how you depict their kōrero, that's really important. The aesthetics is just about, you know, there's the beautifying aspect to it, which was important also. You know, the sexual appeal that happens after you get your moko kanohi is evident.
Right.
I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but you know, sometimes you get these white women coming up to you and touching your face.
A couple of weeks ago, some old lady in a pub, you know, was like, "Can I have a look up close?" You know, you go, "Whoa."
Yeah, and like I say, we need to be wary of those type of trendy approaches because that's not what it's about. But yeah, adopting and adapting for me is a healthy thing, especially as we're trying to revive something that has been gone for 6-7 generations.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's all my questions for today, bro. Tēnei te mihi nui ki a koe mō tō kōrero I te rānei. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and have a chat with me today. I mean, I don't know if it comes across for the audience after this, but I mean, admittedly, I was a little bit nervous, man. I was pretty excited for this chat. You know, like I said, as an artist, I'm not a practitioner or anything, and I haven't gone through wānanga like that, but as a person who's passionate about Māori art forms, all the Māori art forms, you have been one of the artists that I just think is just such a cool, inspirational artist in the space of moko. So I really appreciate you taking the time today. Our final question, sort of to wrap it up, is any advice for Māori whānau who are thinking about getting moko? Yeah, really do your homework on who's going to do it. Don't go rushing into it just because, you know, Kazi down the road is doing it in the garage tomorrow night, sort of a thing. You know, really have a good think about how you're going to approach it. Don't rush into it. Take your time. Get to know the artist. Get to know their whakapapa of their knowledge. Where does their knowledge come from? How long have they been practicing? Are they telling the truth? Get second opinions. Yeah. Yeah, awesome. And then just to wrap it up, let people know where they can find you, you know, if a consultation or just social medias. I'll have you on the title of the video anyway, but...
Yeah, we're on social media with Facebook, Arts Elemental, on Facebook, and on Instagram, I'm two_Moko.
Yeah, awesome. All right.
Artselemental.com.